I don't know what happened there. What's up, Ham Radio? Kilo Echo 8, Papa Zulu November, the Ham Radio Adventure Guy. Thanks for stopping by. Your one stop. All right, that fixed the problem. Now I know what happened. All right, so anyway, thanks for stopping by. Your one stop for everything Adventure Radio. It is Hump Day. Time for the Hump Day Happy Hour, and we're ready to rock this thing. All right, so before we do that, we are going to give a shout out to the Patreons. These guys are absolutely awesome and they rock. They keep me in gasoline, they keep me in food, and they keep me doing all the adventures that you guys love so much. Really quick shout out to John, Kilo 8 November, Nia Victor, the newest Patreon. So, and after that, we're going to go up here and we're going to throw in the newest listing for the Adventure Club right there. Thanks for Kent, Kilo Niner Alpha Echo Echo for the off stream chat. And that moved him into the top 10. Everybody else is still sitting around the same place they were on Sunday. All right, we're going to bring out Hayden and our guests for tonight. What is up, Hayden? What is up? Kilo Delta 9 Uniform Delta Victor.
Good evening, everybody.
What's going on, Steven?
Just excited to be here, and it's actually sunny and warm here in northern Indiana, so I'm loving the weather today. Did a quick activation earlier today over the lunch hour, and loving life.
You were just enjoying being backstream, laughing at all my audio blunders there.
Oh yeah, it's fun to be part of the backstage crew a little bit to kind of see how the sausage is made. Is that the saying?
Yeah, sure.
Thought it was Sunday there for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. I thought it was Sunday, and I was just going to play repeating audio over and over and over again there. So, all right. So we got a good stream tonight. We're going to talk about motorcycle roving because this guy just did a crazy motorcycle rove here the past weekend, and
I can still walk after it too, which is good.
That's impressive.
I actually happened to end up being part of the rove, so that was exciting as well. But before we do that, Stephen, tell everybody who you are and how you got into ham radio real quick.
Yeah, I actually, Hayden, if you want to throw up my screen real quick, kind of do that. So the first two, I'm just going to have a couple of different slides throughout the conversation here. So I got into motorcycling as a very young kid. I never actually rode a motorcycle until my adult age, just because I figured it was probably the better thing to do. I already broke my clavicle mountain biking in high school, so kind of stayed off of it. But as a kid, this is my mom's first one and only motorcycle she bought with her dad back in 1970. So it's a 1970 Honda CB100. And Dad and I, we actually just had it repainted, and he's kept it in pristine condition this entire time. But I have very vivid memories of Dad in the middle of summer in Southern Illinois mowing the grass, and his way to cool off after a nice sticky night of mowing is to grab me, hop on the bike, and just do a couple laps around our little town of Metropolis, Illinois. Doing that. So kind of got the bug with that. And then in addition to traveling, just really like to travel. And so everybody probably knows or heard of my dad a little bit. We've been doing a little bit of activations here. That's him in the middle with the dachshund and my mom. On the left-hand side there, that's not me. That's my best friend, Will. He and I, we actually I rode up from Texas when I was living there to come visit them, my mom, on Mother's Day for during COVID. And that was right when COVID first got out, and everybody was scared, and I really wanted to see my family because they're kind of secluded as well, and so I wanted to kind of see them. So rode my motorcycle up to see them and surprised the crap out of them, which was awesome. My buddy, who's also kind of my brother, I'm an only child, so he's kind of my honorary brother, and so we met up there and surprised them for the weekend, which was fun. So that was a 1,800 mile mom rove, if you will, to go see mom for that weekend to surprise her. To get into ham radio, I really just Dad always had a CB radio in the car, in the conversion van when we traveled. We lived in Southern Illinois, like I said, and my mom's parents, or my mom's mom, was living in Central Illinois, where they're still now. And there was many a days where it's 350-mile drive, and that was pre-video games and stuff like that. And so I actually had a little CB radio that I had with a mag mount on the top that I would have in the back of the car, or listen in on the radio that Dad had installed in his conversion van. So I always just got a kick out of that. And I've always been an electronics geek. I always loved the wires on different things. And so I actually had a little shack in the basement. We ran a bunch of coax out a window of the house I grew up in, and had an antenna mag mount on a metal plate on the peak of the garage roof. And I was able to hear the semis go through I-24, because we were within 10 miles of I-24, so I could kind of pop in and listen to that. So yeah, between Mom buying the bike and Dad keeping it up, and the experience with CB radio, I just kind of fell in love with that whole aspect of things. And I just had a wild hair. It was actually Christmas when I was visiting my family in 2021. And I was like, I should just buy a CB. They're cheap, throw it in the truck and do that. And I remember laying in bed, because my parents go to bed early, and it's like 9 o'clock at night, bored. And so I'm scrolling YouTube on CBs and stuff like that. And I kind of learned that it's kind of a dead hobby. I know that might offend someone, but it's just not as prominent as it was, in the 70s, 80s, and even kind of the 90s as well. So
Absolutely.
somehow I got on this YouTube vortex or something, and it just popped up ham radio. And I was always discouraged in doing ham radio, just because the whole licensing thing and everything, it was just it sounded formal. And I'm like, I did 4 years of college, and I don't want to deal with studying and stuff like that. But the YouTube community really helped me kind of not be scared about it. And it was much less intimidating that I really thought it was. And so I watched a bunch of videos, grabbed a couple books, reading materials, and I kind of pulled the James Mod method and just did a cram in my head for a couple of weeks. And I was able to grab my technician in general all in one swoop. And that was end of January of 2022. So I've only been a ham for just under a year and a half now. For that. So yeah, so that's kind of my journey up until present day.
Good stuff. And just being a ham for a year and a half, you came a long way and stuff. I know you hunt me CW quite a bit, and you're pretty proficient at that. So
yeah, every time's a hand key. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's he'll get it. He'll get the Victor.
I'll get the Victor ?
Victor, yeah.
It's funny, because if you don't know what we're talking about, when Steven will say his call sign when he's hunting you, he'll be like, Kilo Delta 9, Uniform Delta Victor, like he's asking a question.
And it's just me thinking, am I going to get him this time? So I spent my last year and a half really trying to figure out how to bust pileups from a timing perspective, because there's a lot of great hunters out there that run barefoot and they have a good signal, but it's all about that timing and the tone and stuff like that. So you kind of have to find your tone. So I guess mine is asking a question, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. I bust the pileups.
Yeah, everybody has their own thing.
Yeah.
Are you typing, Hayden?
Well, yeah, I'm typing, but that's not the sound that you're referring to.
It's the sound I'm referring to now.
Yes.
Whatever.
Time for a new keyboard.
Whatever that sound was that I asked you about, it went away. It was a clicking sound, and it went away. But all right, I'll let you go ahead and so this past weekend, you did kind of a crazy thing on a motorcycle.
I did.
At least I think it's kind of crazy. It's something that I would do in a vehicle.
Right.
Well, every day, but but on a motorcycle, that I feel like I would still be in the hospital and track.
Well, I wasn't able to ride 1,350 miles in a couple of days at the very first. The photo that I'm showing right here is my very first motorcycle trip. This was back in the summer of 2018. I was new to motorcycling. I got my license that fall before. This was, I think, early May of 2018, and I lived out in Colorado for the summer. And I would take a weekend. I have this thing about not taking off work for whatever reason, so I make the best out of my weekends. And so there were multiple weekends on that summer where I would ride in some direction in Colorado for 500 miles, camp, turn around, and come back. The way I like to ride is I like to have a goal in mind. I like to go somewhere or have a destination like that. I just want to chase that carrot. I don't like to just go do loops and just wander aimlessly. I'll do that while I'm going to my destination, but I always like to chase that carrot. So I'd always just randomly pick a destination. And quick segue into that. That's why I really am loving marrying ham radio along with motorcycling, is because I can have multiple carrots along the way and either pick multiple states like I did this weekend or this last weekend, or do a little mini rove, or just go to one park that I haven't activated yet. And so I'm really looking forward now that the weather is almost broke in the spring here. I'm really looking forward to going through and doing some motorcycle camping and stuff like that. But it'll be fun for you to kind of see my little progression of. This was my first bike, a 2018 Street Bob. It was right when they put in the new Milwaukee 8 engine. So it was a kind of a brand new design. And I'm brand new to the Harley community. Everybody talked me out of getting a little Sportster because they knew me. They're like, you're going to want to ride that more than just a couple hundred miles. I'm like, I doubt it. But then as soon as I got to Colorado, I'm like, yep, I'm going to do a 1,000-mile weekend the first weekend. And it hurt on that bike a little bit in comparison to today. But yeah, I just had a couple dry bags and prepared as much as I could and kind of went through. So this is kind of my motorcycle travels. That's in Colorado. That was my first setup for tent camping. That was just at a KOA to kind of be safe. Just beautiful scenery out in Colorado. That, I believe, is the Continental Divide. I have so many photos from these trips, but I think that was late May, early June. So there was still snow up on the elevation and stuff like that. So just awesome. You got to prepare for the rain. This was a trip where I rode to go to Mount Rushmore, and on my way there, this bike has a range of about 200 miles, and I was new to doing the long distance, and this kind of goes into, if you're doing motorcycle roving, make sure about your fuel range and know that, you know, some of these parks are going to be in remote areas. You might not have fuel tank or fuel stations for 50 to 100 miles, and you have to account for that. And so I was going through Wyoming, and I peeled off the main interstate, and I'm just beautiful weather. I'm excited. I have my whole weekend ahead of me, and I saw a sign, next service is 80 miles. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. Look down at my fuel range on the Harley because it has a digital display. It was like 95 to 100 miles. I'm like, I'm good, whatever. Well, long story short, I almost had to push my bike. And I just set it at like 50 miles an hour and just pegged it at 50 miles an hour, didn't accelerate. I couldn't find, and I didn't have cell signal, and I just kept on my track. And I'm like, well, worst thing, I'll just have to walk a little bit. Be nice to have a radio at that point, you know, with no cell signal. Fire up the radio and have Toby call AAA for me. Our #1 hunter. So that was a good lessons learned. This was one of my next trips. As you can see, I kind of progressed in my luggage gear. I had a compression dry bag for my keep wanting to say seatbelt sleeping bag on there, and just kind of expanded stuff for that. And if anybody knows, that stretch of road looks familiar to probably a bunch of people. It is the road that Forrest Gump rode down, or ran down, and I was like, I think I'm going to go home now. So that was kind of neat to pull over and take a couple shots of that. So that was fun. And this was down in Moab, which is beautiful. And this was later that summer. The aspens were starting to pop. That was my my real last ride before packing up and heading back out east for that. And there's James's Forfer there. I was standing in 4 states at once. So that was fun with my vintage looking motorcycle boots for that. That is Maggie's Diner. If anybody has watched the movie Wild Hogs, that's the actual diner that they used to film. That's down in New Mexico, which was kind of fun. So that was a fun little destination. So enough about motorcycling. I'll kind of go through some of my Moto activations, kind of show how I set up, how I work. I think that'd be kind of fun. And then I also will kind of go through my gear, and that can kind of open up some questions, and we can kind of go on whatever tangents we want, if that's okay with you guys.
Sounds good, man. It's your show. It's your show tonight.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So this is my twofer that you guys probably always see me at, 4208 and 5683. This was a new spot that I discovered a couple of days ago when I'm like, I want to find an actual picnic bench, get out of the truck because it's nicer out, and activate. So there's my battery box, my 891. I love using hammers. That pad that my iPad is on, that's actually a knee board for aviation. So I use that iPad. I have the one that has the LTE in it, which also has GPS, which is really nice. And when I'm flying, I can strap it to my leg and have ForeFlight, which is the aviation app with the maps and stuff, and I can see all my frequencies that I need for various airports. And then it's great for POTA too. It keeps it protected, and I just keep it in one little thing. And it has LTE and GPS, so I don't have to link it up, and I can always make sure that those green check boxes are good for the QSOs, so I don't fat finger something. This was a couple weeks ago, activating. I've really started to fall in love with an InFed half wave. That's the 1010's 49-to-1 InFed with about a 65-foot silicone wire cut. And sometimes I just use the motorcycle as a weight and string it up in a tree and activate that way. This was part of my Rove, and I guess I could kind of talk about my Rove. I've unfortunately have only activated about 4 states up until this last weekend. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. And I haven't really traveled a whole lot in the last couple of years just because of COVID. And I'm starting up a side business for music. And so I've been busy on the weekend, so I haven't really been able to travel. But I wanted to seize the moment this weekend. I'm like, I want to activate 5 new states. Thought that was kind of a big thing to chew off, but we knocked it out. So I started in Friday night. I just went as early as I could within reason to get to Erie before sunset. Didn't happen. Had some things I had to take care of, but grabbed a hotel. I didn't do any tent camping or anything this weekend just because it was new to I was new to that area, and I haven't been riding a whole lot, and I just wanted to have a good night's sleep in an actual bed, and I wanted to kind of keep my pack light for this trip. But the next morning, woke up early and activated a park in Erie, Pennsylvania. So I was able to check Pennsylvania off the list there, and it was just absolutely beautiful. That's the new bike, my BMW GS 1250. Had it a couple years. Have about 25,000 miles on it. And if you look closely, you can probably see that InFed half wave just kind of go from there all the way up and over on that tree. And I just set up shop there. So that was a lot of fun. And then after I hit Pennsylvania, I popped over to New York and activated a park there and almost got stuck. That was fun. And this, if you can't tell, that's the promised land, guys. That's where the king stays. And he let me put my InFed half wave right there up into a tree on the top of on the way to his main royal spot up at the top of the hill, and activated there. He met up with me that morning and filmed a little short to promote this video or this live stream and stuff like that. So that was fun to activate with the king. And the night before, we actually activated with Terry Kilo 8 Golf Quebec. So that was a lot of fun. We have a lot of good shenanigan type stories that we'll have to refer to in the after chat and on Sunday again.
So
go ahead.
Before you go on, before you guys ask any questions, I did only let him activate outside of the throne room. He was not allowed to activate in the throne room itself, so he didn't get to sit on the throne and activate.
He did offer to give me a chair though, so that was nice.
All right, go ahead.
So Dan, load up that guardrail. I actually posted this in Discord because I was getting some weird SWR, and so I ended up putting the shielded side of the connector, and I rested that connector on the guardrail, and that kind of helped give me a nice counterpoise. So I didn't load it up, but I did use it as a counterpoise, which was kind of fun. So that was fun. This was actually last night. I just had a wild hair. It was 43 degrees out, and I'm like, you know what? I want to go to my twofer on my way home. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm going to do it. So nice, horrible flash video. And apparently I parked by the dump station because that's the RV wash. But whatever, you got to do what you got to do, right? I'll go through my gear a little bit real quick, just so you kind of see where I'm going with things, and then we can kind of just open up for questions and whatnot. So this is my primary kit. I have a small ammo can, and I just acquired the 60-watt solar panel, which is the thing that looks like a little briefcase. And then I have a Maxpedition backpack that I bought when I got into hiking back in the day and didn't know that there were actual backpacking backpacks that you could utilize. This was taken earlier today. I was testing out my new solar panel rig that I put together. I've just added a charge controller. I'll show you a photo here in a second, just to kind of keep my battery topped off, because power is kind of a concern when you're on a motorcycle, because you want to keep things small, but you also want the capacity, and kind of depending on how you rove, you may need a little bit more power than you can get. And I think what I'll probably do, I have heated gear, and I have a couple 12-volt barrel connectors, and I think it's the SAE type of connector. It's typically used for solar panels. I'm probably going to go and buy one of the Bioenno DC to DC converters for the lithium ion, and I'll be able to charge 4 amps an hour on one of those guys and just tie it into the bike. I just have to be careful to do that while it's running, and I'm not draining the battery, like if I stop to grab lunch or something like that. So that's kind of in the plan. I just kind of want to figure out, do I really want to drill holes into my aluminum side cases to get a wire in, or do I want to strap the battery box, on like a mesh bungee or something like that? So jury's still out on what I want to do with that, but it's kind of fun to tinker with solar and just kind of see how long I can let that little 15 amp hour battery run on a trip. So, which has been kind of fun. And so here's a closer look of the battery box. I have the charge controller fused on both positive and negative, just because that's what Yaesu likes to do on their power cables. So I followed suit on that. And then I also have a master fuse on negative and positive to the battery as well. And on 40 and 20 today, while that was charging, as long as the panels were more than a couple feet away from my radio and stuff, I did not get any RFI. So this is a great little charge controller. It was like $124 or something around that range. If you're interested, it's on Amazon. James has the affiliate link to that, and also my solar panel. So if you want help support him and get those guys, it's KD9 UDV approved as of right now. So I've heard really good things about them. So that's good stuff. I couldn't not do a what's in the bag video because, Dan said, don't do it. So I have to. So I have to do it. So this is my primary kit for motorcycling. I have my 891. I have a LDG tuner so I could tune up my InFed to 30 to get James on CW, and then also can get to 80. I'm working with PP Man to kind of figure out to do a longer wire. I think I can do about a 135-foot wire for this 49-to-1. I'll be able to get 160. I'm hoping. So I want to try that at some point. For that, iPad's in the far top right there, antenna analyzer. Also have the power pole conversion. Again, thank you, PP Man, for helping me out with that, getting that conversion kit. That just simplifies the kit and everything. And you will see there's not a fuse on that cable. I wanted to keep my kit as streamlined as possible. I'm focused on all of the bulk to be in that battery box. So everything is fused in the battery box, so I can just plug that in hot. Don't have to have a risk of shorting anything out because all those fuses are closest to the power source, so I don't have a problem. So it really keeps your work area when you're trying to activate a lot more organized, which I really try to do. Because especially if you're on roves, you want to keep things as streamlined and as organized as possible. The last thing you want to do is kind of forget something because of clutter. For that, I just ordered the Sporty 40. I haven't used it yet. I thought I was going to use it this last weekend on my rove, but I was able to just throw a wire up in a tree at every part. And so that worked out well. It's just nice to not have to retune an antenna. The InFed is resonant on 4 frequencies, and I primarily just do 40 and 20 when I'm roving anyway. So it was nice to kind of go back and forth. Bottom right, you can see the 10 antennas, 49-to-1 there, and then that's my 65 foot of wire for that InFed. Have that sandbag weight, and then we've been talking on Discord a lot about radials, and with the mobility that I wanted and kind of fitting in smaller spaces, since I have the motorcycle and stuff, I wanted to kind of minimize my footprint a little bit. And so the Wolford recoil comes with the 33-foot radials, 3 of them. And so what I decided to do after talking to everybody, we decided to take that 33-foot, cut them in thirds, and do 11-foot radials and bundle them together. So I have the Mueller clips on that, and I actually have 3 12-foot silicone wires, and I have 3 of those, and I just have them all wrapped up onto that. So that's my radial system for the Wolford recoil with the small tripod for that. So looking forward to seeing how that works. I'm sure it'll be fine, and it'll work great as well. And I also want to kind of minimize my footprint. I have a CB mount with the 239 connector on it. I want to have that kind of permanently mounted somewhere on my bike, as long as it doesn't scratch up the roll bars or anything. I kind of want that there. I want to tinker with just having a CB whip type of deal on the motorcycle. That way, if I want to just pop into a park and just set up super fast, I want to try doing that. So I don't know what kind of bonding I'll need to do for it. But again, with motorcycles, you want to make sure everything is nice and watertight and away from the elements. So that Maxpedition bag and my my battery box can fit in that side case, lock it with the key, waterproof, it's good to go. If I do drop the bike, the way this bike is designed, because it's a boxer engine, the cylinder heads are horizontally opposed, and I have a nice roll cage on it as well. And if I do lay it down, that roll cage actually protects, and it's weighted in the front. It will not damage the side cases at all, which is nice. So I don't have to worry about damaging the gear, and it's nice and secure. You'll see that PVC pipe there. That's a 17-foot whip. So David down in Georgia will appreciate that, using the 17-foot whip. And so I just have it as a little thread screw. I can just slide the whip in there. I make sure that I put the threaded side up so I can pull out the whole part instead of just the tip and kind of get it all kind of weird. So again, I haven't used that yet as far as on the motorcycle, but I've had good success with the 17-foot whip when I use it on the truck and portable on occasion. So that's what my dad, I've been training him up on the 17-foot whip and tuning it with the Wolford recoil. We get out. And then this is the business end, if you will, of the battery box. So I have 2 sets of power poles right there. And then I just actually, as of last night, I installed the barrel connector for the solar panel. So again, I want things as streamlined as possible, so when I go and activate, I don't have to tinker with a bunch of stuff. So that solar panel that I have has the 12-volt barrel connector. I just take that wire out of the little pouch, make sure that the battery box is connected first, and then plug the solar panels in. A little pro tip with solar that I've learned in my years of RVing and installing solar systems: you never want to have the solar panels hit a charge controller that doesn't have a battery connected to it, because that power has to go somewhere and you can actually harm things. So you always want to make sure that you have your your battery source at least live. It can be empty or a low battery. It just needs somewhere to go. And so this is something to keep aware of. But wanted to keep my kit as streamlined as possible. And then lastly, this is my one bag, my go bag for all of my motorcycle camping stuff. And this is made by Moto. I think it's the Backcountry 40, they call it. It's a 40-liter bag. It's absolutely amazing. It folds out at the top. You can put your tent stakes in it in poles, and it goes in this pouch. And when you cinch it down on the bike, you actually go underneath this piece. And so when you cinch it down, you're not putting pressure on the tent stakes and the poles, which is nice, so you won't bend them. So that's really kind of cool. And then you can have a place for maps and stuff like that. And then the exploded diagram. As I took the photo, I forgot that I didn't realize I don't have my actual tent in here. So I'm glad I didn't grab this bag and go on my 5-state road with this bag thinking my tent was in it. But I pretty much have everything to kind of survive as far as the bare necessities. I've got the tent stakes aside from the tent. I have the Nemo pillow, which is really nice. I've learned that I'm a sleep guy. I have to be comfortable sleeping. You'll watch videos of backpackers and hikers and everything, and it's all about weight, and it's not really weight on a motorcycle as much as size. And so you have to kind of pick what things you want. And so that's why I really streamline my radio kit as small as possible. I'm packing the Sporty 40 and not the Wolf River coil because I know how I activate now. The lowest band I'll probably go to is 40. And if I want to do 80, I'm going to throw a wire in a tree, but I have some good options to keep things small. So I have the mini pillow, the little air mattress that's insulated. I also have a sleeping bag liner, which I feel is critical because it keeps you cool and it also keeps you warm. And then most importantly, it kind of keeps your funk out of the sleeping bag as well, which is kind of cool. So you can just continuously wash that sleeping bag liner, and you don't have to always wear out your sleeping bag while washing it. You just wash the liner, which is kind of nice. And then I have a compression sack for my sleeping bag. I think that's a 20°C bag. I also have a 55° for the summer. And this doubles as a dry sack as well. So I always try to do dual purpose on anything I do. Even with radio, I want to be able to have one item to do multiple things. So for example, if we go back to this, my Wolf River coil tripod legs, I use those as stakes for the InFed half wave when I need to. I don't have other stakes, or I have the tent stakes. So I always try to kind of double up different things for that. So that is nice. So if I run out of room in my dry bag and I need to have my sleeping bag hang out on the mesh and it's raining out, that's fine. I can protect whatever I need to keep out of the elements. If my 3 side cases doesn't have the space, I can kind of expand out. And then I always have a first aid kit, and I have one of the little pocket rocket stoves that I can boil water and make my tea or coffee in the morning. And I've been known to scramble up some bacon and eggs on the burner as well. And so this is a MSR field kitchen kit, so I can do any kind of grilling, and I have my primary oils and seasoning and stuff that I want to cook and stuff like that when I go out and camp as well. So yeah, that's pretty much my my whole setup here, guys.
What about rain gear for yourself when you're on the bike? And thank you very much, Terry, for the slices of pizza.
Yes, I have. I don't have a photo readily available. I thought about putting something on there, but yeah, I have a BMW adventure suit. It has, my buddy calls them my adventure pants. He teases me about it, but I have waterproof pants. I don't know if the short shows it, but yeah, I was wearing my BMW pants that day, and then I have the big waterproof boots that I wear. That's kind of the motocross boots. So I have those as well. It's waterproof. And then my jacket is also waterproof. I also have kind of the plastic kind of over overpants and jacket as well that I can wear too. I did that when I was riding the Harley because I didn't have like the whole adventure pants type get up. You don't want to have that vibe on a Harley anyway. So I had a what do they call it? It's not a full saddlebag, but it's on the A-arm at the back. I forget what they call them, but I had a jacket and a pair of pants in there, and then the booties that you can cover up. But yeah, rain is a big one. I wanted to make sure I invested in some good rain gear because if I didn't have good rain gear last weekend, I would have either not gone or been miserable for a couple of those times, which was good. So yeah, that's a good point, James.
Yeah, because I mean, you definitely ran into some storms and stuff. So
right, yeah, I certainly did. Yeah, and it's nice to have technology too. I have my phone mounted on my bike, and so I can have my GPS up on it, and then I have the e-finger gloves, and I can swipe over and check the radar. So there's been numerous times. I feel like I have better luck in more mountainous areas to ride around storms than like the Midwest, because I feel like they're more isolated. And I was thankful this weekend when I was in West Virginia, and Kentucky when this was happening. They were very isolated. And I knew exactly when about they were going to pop because you could just see that wall of rain coming. And so I just pull over and sit in my adventure chair and put my rain gear on and keep going. Terry. Yeah, having good weather gear, just period, opens up for a lot of different options. Like, perfect example, last night I was riding late from Fort Wayne down to home, and I told my buddy, I'm like, man, I'd love to go activate on my way home. He's like, well, do it. I'm like, it's 40 degrees. He's like, yeah, don't do that. And so I'm on my bike, I fill up, top it off, and I put my heated jacket on because I have it's like a windbreaker, but it has the 12-volt barrel connector. I can just plug that into the bike, and
that's nice.
So I'm going down the interstate at 75 miles an hour. It's 42 degrees out, and by the time I turn off to either go left to go home or go right to my twofer, of course I turned right because I was nice and warm. I wasn't chilled, and so that allowed me to activate. And I just kept my jacket on and everything, and stayed warm and was not miserable at all. So that really kind of helped keep my options up.
So what's the worst weather you've ever been in, like when you're out like that on the trips?
I went down in northern Texas. I went for a ride, and it was an absolute torrential downpour, and this was my street glide. I don't have anything pictured with that, but I had the big honking Eagle, American Eagle cold air intake on it, and I didn't have my rain filter on. And so it was just literally, it wasn't raining cats and dogs. It was like cows and horses. I mean, it was insane. Like, people on the interstate down there were pulling off and stopping. And here I am in my rain gear going down the interstate safely. I wasn't being an idiot, but my bike kept choking because it was just raining so hard. And so I was like, I'm sure I was shooting water out of the exhaust. It was doing a full cycle. So that was crazy. And then there was a trip I took a friend up to Vail in Colorado. Colorado weather is interesting because you need, even if it's early summer or late summer, you have to be prepared. And I didn't realize how much hail happens there. And so we're about 10 miles from Vail. We're at elevation. We're doing like hairpin turns. She's on the back of the bike, and she's like beating on my shoulder. And she's a fellow motorcyclist, and she actually got me into motorcycling as an adult. And I thought she was just loving it. By the time I pulled off, she's like, oh my God, I thought I was going to die. I thought she was excited. And then the black clouds rolled in, and it started hailing. And so my initial reaction is take my helmet off and put my rain gear on. But what I really should have done is just kept my helmet on, because hail in Colorado at 12,000 foot elevation, they get big fast and it hurts. And so we're like going into the pine trees to try to get cover to put our gear on and to put our helmets back on to finish the trip, and then it downpours. So that was crazy. So yeah, it's usually rain and hail. Hail hurts. It feels like bullets for sure, and that's rough. I usually ride above freezing temperature, so I never had any kind of snow issue. I'm really nervous about kind of doing the snow type of deal. People do it. My bike can definitely do it because it has a really nice low center of gravity. For the weight that it is, it's very agile. I can really carve out the turns. I get down to like a 35-degree angle, and you look like it looks like I'm gonna scrape the bike, but I'm far from it. It's awesome. So yeah, Vail, I think with the hail was my number one, and then the huge rainstorm.
Vail with hail. So then you become a rapper.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, thank you very much, Hayden, for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's because I missed Terry. I felt bad. So what is your favorite motorcycle trip that you've had so far?
Favorite motorcycle trip so far? I mean, this most recent one was probably the most refreshing and the most appreciated, just because I was able to actually meet up with some new people, new friends, merge a new hobby into it. So it's definitely up on my list. But I would say the ride going down the road that Forrest Gump ran on, and just hanging and this in the red rocks and that terrain, I think it was just beautiful. It was awesome, and it's just out in the middle of nowhere, a different type of culture. I love pulling into different cultures. I like the whole motorcycle aspect because it kind of forces you off the beaten path. You change the way you ride. You take those curvy roads, which brings you into different types of communities and stuff like that. Because and I was more of an interstate rider this last weekend. That's probably why it's not number one. Because I wanted to get somewhere fast. But with a motorcycle, it's all about the adventure and the journey, not just getting to point A and point B. And I find myself, even if I ride to my parents' house, it's much more enjoyable to do that 250 miles on the motorcycle, because I'll go through the windmill farms and stuff of Indiana and Illinois. But if I'm in my truck, I don't want to do that stop and go. That's not fun. And a bike, it's always fun to accelerate, But when you're in a truck, you want to just set the cruise at 80 on 80, 90 and just pucker through Chicago and deal with the traffic and get through it. And it's just a different mindset for that. And that's why I love motorcycling. It's all about the journey and just meeting different people. And they always ask me about my bike, especially this one, because it's so different. It's not just another Harley on the road. A lot of people don't ride them in the areas that I go.
So it is an adventure bike. It's on road or off road. Yep. How much off roading have you done with it?
Not a whole lot. It is an off-road bike. In my opinion, it's not a true off-road bike. These are more of a touring bike that can do off-road, and it will definitely do on-road for that, but mainly just kind of the dirt roads, like the roads that I showed you from New York. That's about the craziest I've ever really done, to be quite honest. I haven't hit any trails. I have a little bit of PTSD from breaking my clavicle in high school and having 3 surgeries to put that thing back together. So I don't really want to do a whole lot of crazy off-roading. And honestly, if I were to do a lot of off-roading, I'd pick a different bike. I'd have something much smaller and lighter.
Okay, so everybody's doing. Hayden went with 5.56 and Dan's going with 2.23. I prefer 5.56 over to 2.23.
I do too.
In both ways, money and the shell. But he's got a question for you there, Stephen.
Yeah. What's your next motorcycle? G-Rove? It might actually come. I might go down and see my boo. Actually, I was thinking about like the Carolinas and Georgia. Will be probably my next one. I'm actually considering doing something this weekend, actually, because this is one of my last weekends before I'm going to be tied up for all of my gigs on the weekend. So I'm thinking about splitting, maybe even taking Friday off and do a 3-day multi-state rove and knock those out. So I need to drive to. I'm actually driving to Texas in first week of May. So I'm going to try to hit some parks on those either weekends after my gigs and on my way to my work trip too. So I'll be able to get anywhere from Illinois through Texas. That strip, I'm going to try to go make a big loop and grab another five or 7 states.
Awesome. Good stuff.
My tailbone is fine actually, Dan, because this motorcycle, it has suspension for days, and that's kind of why I picked it too. Is it's like I was telling somebody last night, it's like a little Jetsons hovercraft, really, when you ride. I can go through some of the worst potholes. The thing just does not care, because especially when I have my gear loaded up, full tank of fuel, I'm at 600, 700, 800 pounds total gross weight of the vehicle. And I have at least 8 inches of suspension travel on the rear, and probably 4 to 6 in the front, if not more. And it just floats. It's awesome.
What kind of range are you getting with that over the last bike?
So my Street Bob, I get around 200.
Yeah.
And I have it depends. It's a slippery question to really answer, because when you're on a bike, you want to get it. But if I'm behaving, I can be north of 300 to 350.
And that's the BMW?
Yeah, BMW GS 1250 Adventure. So I picked the Adventure model for a couple of reasons. It's a taller bike, so you have more suspension travel because it's for more off-roading. And then it also has a larger fuel tank. And I wanted to prevent that issue from happening again, where I almost ran out of fuel, because I realized, okay, if I'm riding for 50 miles and then the next station is 150 or 50 or 100, that's kind of, I like to have a buffer there. And actually, my trip here, I ran into it a little bit. I got down a little low in Kentucky, and I'm like, I'm sure to be fine. But in those mountainous areas, services are a little further between each other. So, but we were good. But yeah, fuel range is key for sure.
Absolutely.
So David says potholes in South Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, David, he made it through West Virginia unscathed, and if he can make it through West Virginia potholes, he's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually did hit something on in Ohio, just south of Dayton. And I was riding, it was on the interstate, so I was probably going about 75, 80 miles an hour with traffic. And all of a sudden, my front tire goes, just like that. And I heard this chirp, and it just kind of jolted. And so I have tire pressure monitoring system on it. So I just flipped over to that to make sure it doesn't drop. And so at my next fuel stop, I checked it out. I had a piece of rubber, and it's still there, actually. I need to get a valve adjustment on my 25K service in a couple of weeks. I'm going to have them look at it. But a piece of rubber from the road, I guess it was from a retread off of a semi. There was a piece, and it got wedged in the rim and the bead, and it's holding air. But yeah, I hit something, and the bike chirped. So, and I think what chirped was actually the tire that I hit, or piece of tire. It was funny. So, yeah, I got to be careful of those road hazards.
Mike, thanks for the good sniper round, buddy. Appreciate you.
So it looks like Red Summit RF is asking about overnights on your treks. I like to mix it up between hotel and camping. This last trip, I haven't ridden all winter. I wanted to get some good nights of rest, and I knew I was wanting to cover a lot of mileage in a very short period of time. So I opted for hotels. So staying at Chief Logan cabin, that was cool. At that hotel, that was fun. Oh yeah, Larry, a long way around. That yeah, definitely some sketchy terrain, and yeah, I would love to have a riding buddy like Charlie. Charlie was awesome. He is crazy. So a great series. Yeah, the GS 1200 series, 1250s, they pride themselves on being the adventure bike, and people will literally ride them around the world. And I had a coworker actually in Texas, in Dallas. He rode with a couple of his buddies. He was retired, I think, and they took a 6-week trip and went all the way up to Alaska, the very top part of Alaska, from Texas. So 3 weeks up, 3 weeks back, and they did I forget what it's called. There's that one area up there. I have it on my weather app because they always have crazy weather. Prudhoe Bay. Yeah, Prudhoe Bay. Yeah, it's 6 degrees there right now. So Prudhoe Bay is really cool because that's where the hardcore motorcyclists and trekkies, if you will, go. And it's an old pipeline road, and it gets pretty sketch at times. And you have to, time out your fuel stops and plan for that. And even in the middle of summer, it can be some crazy weather as well. And so that's one trip that I want to do at some point. Maybe that's how I'll activate Alaska at some point. I have to figure out how to take 6 weeks off, though.
Well, I know you covered this in your presentation, but maybe you could answer Charlie real quick.
Yeah, he popped in a little late. He didn't see the presentation.
That's okay.
No worries. What do you use to put up antenna masts at a tree? So I have, so if you look at the background here, you can see the InFed half wave. Actually, I could probably just
make it a little bigger.
So yeah, in here I threw it in the tree there. Yeah, I'm sharing. Yeah, you can do that too. Yep, InFed half wave. Just throw it in a tree. I do have a Soda Beams mast, a 32-foot. I haven't tinkered with that yet. I need to do the PP Man mod with the eyelet that James and I were talking about. So I need to do the epoxy trick on that and have an eyelet for that piece. But when there's not trees, I plan on using the Wolf River coil at that point. And also, I want to look into doing the CB mount, the CB clamp somewhere on my bike that I can just thread in a 3/8 and throw my coax and do a loop and try that.
Your Soda Beams is probably small enough that you could put it like on the other side where you've got your 17-foot whip. You could probably put it on the other side just like that.
Yeah, it's the 32 footer. It's about the length of yours, maybe a little longer. Yeah. I don't know if I could fit it under back behind there. Yeah, I could maybe give it a shot. Maybe try it. I'm thinking about getting whatever the next size PVC pipe is for the Soda Beams and making a capsule for it, and then somehow mounting it with some kind of stainless steel hardware or like stainless steel hose clamps or something somewhere on the bike too. So yeah, I don't know if I'm just extra paranoid, but I don't really want to have a lot of expensive stuff that's not in the side cases strapped to my bike when I'm traveling, because I like to go in and have a nice, lunch or dinner somewhere, and I'll be leaving the bike unattended a little bit, so I don't want to have to unpack a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I have to kind of figure out how I want to do that. I have considered, there's some people that do a Pelican case mod. So instead of having that aluminum top case that I have, I might do kind of like a carry-on size Pelican case and just get hardware that it can do a quick connect, and then I can use my Beamer key to lock it, and to just have that there. So yeah, there's some different options, but again, that mast is going to take a lot of space, and just one more thing to keep track of. So I think my Rove this weekend, what I've really kind of enjoyed is the fact of the challenge on it's kind of like a dog doing its circles on figuring out where he wants to do his business. It's kind of like, where am I going to hand this InFed? It's kind of fun. And James, you were like, why did it take him so long to get to that other park? It's just across the barrier or the state line. And I was kind of like a dog circling. I'm like, okay, where's a good park? Where's a good place to park? And I don't want to be under power lines and stuff like that. So it's kind of the fun of it too, to have just a couple different antenna types to to not fail an activation in the regards of I get there and I don't have anything I can use. But it's kind of fun to go to a situation and be like, okay, let's do this here and try and see what happens. And perfect example, last night it was cold, late, dark, couldn't see anything. And so I actually circled with the bike with the high beams, and there was like a car parked in the back parking lot, and which is one of the places where I go. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to leave them alone. So I went to this new spot, and I didn't want to throw that sandbag up too far and get stuck. And so I found a low branch. And so yesterday I did a very low inverted V. I mean, I think I reached up and just put the wire over the branch. So it was no taller than 9 feet. And so it was just like this. And I got 48 contacts last night. And one thing, James, that I took away weekend is don't overthink it. You know, the question that you were asked is like, oh, James, what coax do you use? And you're like, dude, I don't know, it works. And I have historically been on the other way of that, on like, what is it, paralysis by analysis, on like overthinking it. Just go out and do it. Go out and activate, try it. If you have a failed activation, at least you're out there doing it. You know, there's no real failure when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so last night, you were in my head a little bit on it just works. I'm like, you know what? Part of being a ham is to try new things. So I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be simpler, and all I need is 13. I got my Discord people got my back. I can always do a different type, but it worked. You know, it was a neat night last night to kind of to do that and just not overthink it and just go do it.
Right. I mean, it's honestly, there's so many different ways you can put up an antenna. Like if I'm going to put one up super low like that, I'm probably just going to do a sloper because they'll work really well low like that. But hey, the InFed or the inverted V worked well for you that low. So, like you said, do what works and do what works for you. Right. But yeah, when you was talking about, because I was sitting in a park, I was like, yeah, I'll wait and I'll get him at the next park. It's just 10 minutes. You know, I got him parked the park here. I'll just wait. It's 10 minutes. I've done this a million times. And you know, like 25 minutes later, I'm like,
where is he?
Where's he at? Did I miss his spot? I mean, he didn't spot in Discord or nothing. What's going on? And I sent him a message, and he's like, "Oh no, I just got here." And I'm like, "What do you mean you just got there?"
Rookie activator. No, but there's also variables too. Like you have your jacket, you have to pack up, you have to put everything in the spot so it doesn't fall out. Then you have to just circle around, make sure you don't leave anything. Then you have your gloves, you know, and then after that second activation, so I activated Virginia first, and then I did Kentucky. The Kentucky side where I was at, which I used the guardrail as the counterpoise, I got, I don't know, 20 contacts. I was starting to get momentum, and like that was when the band was just taking a dive. Within a QSO, you would hear syllables, and that's it. And all of a sudden, black skies, rain, and I got November 4 Charlie Whiskey Bravo. He was my last contact. I'm like, I gotta go. It's raining. I'm on a bike, and so I just QRT, and yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, it just unfortunately it takes a little bit more time, and I'm working on streamlining that. Obviously, I've learned a lot from this weekend, and it's fun to kind of share my takeaways. And it'd be neat to do this in the fall after I've been a little bit more roadworthy and kind of loop back and kind of tell you what my new findings are.
Well, I'm going to tell y'all, if you didn't take anything from this stream, take what he said about doing the walk around before you leave. Because that don't just go for motorcycles. That goes for every kind of activation. When I was in Florida, I actually was packing up everything, and I set my coax on the fence there, and on the top post there, and I was loading up everything, and I get to the next park, and I throw up a mass, put up an InFed half wave, and I'm like, "Where's my coax?" And I'm like, crap. So
at least you didn't drive off with it connected.
So I have to take everything down and drive back to the other park and then come back and do it again.
That's
So,
funny.
do you have a POTA Elmer or somebody to attribute to getting you into POTA?
I don't actually. I just kind of fell into POTA. I think part of the reason was I was just kind of scrubbing the bands as a new ham just 14 months ago, and I kept hearing this Kilo Echo 8 guy that's really good signal. I kept hunting him, and then he mentioned that he had a YouTube channel, and so I checked that out. And I always watched the spot comments, yeah, on your activations back then because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, what are these comments and stuff, and 5.9s, and then there's a stake there. Okay, so I'll follow suit and that kind of thing. And then everybody's like, man, this guy deals with pileups like a boss, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of why I took note from your pileups, actually, because I just thought it was so cool how it's just kind of rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. And I've adopted that, at least for my pre and post late shift activations. I love to try to go as fast as I can. And now my hunters also know, looks like Toby, that happened to her too. I just absolutely love those roars, and I love to go as fast as I can because somehow mentally in my head, the faster I go, the more engaged the hunters are going to be willing to stay in the pile up to get me and stuff like that. And so it's been kind of fun to kind of do that. And I do slow it down on my earlier and later activations, but right before pre and post, I love to just kind of do the PZN speed QSOs, and it's a lot of fun. I feel like it's a neat challenge to my brain to be typing and hearing the next call sign. And then I also try to remember as many call signs as I can within one QRZ call. And so I'm getting good to get a full call, remember a last character, and then remember Austin's in there or something like that, you know? And so it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you know, I'll tell you, if you're scrolling through the bands and you don't hear me on the radio, you need a new antenna. Because I'm there. I'm there. And we're going to start wrapping it up. But, you know, it's easy to see me when I'm on the POTA spotting page, but I do a lot of roves and stuff that I only spot on my Discord if I'm doing like 20 or so parks. And so Discord is absolutely free. Join us over on Discord and get in on all these secret activations. Most of my CW activations are all spotted on Discord. I do spot on POTA every now and then for CW, but most of them I just spot on Discord. And it's absolutely free. Cost you nothing to join Discord. Hayden, you got anything coming up? We're gonna wrap this again.
Do a little hunting, and not this weekend, but next Saturday I've got my memorial activation and Maryland meetup. Everybody's welcome to come. K1577 at 10 o'clock, Saturday the 29th.
And if you cannot make that memorial activation, make sure and hunt them, guys. It means a lot.
Yeah, if you hunt this, Jason actually put together a special award that you'll get, and it's really nice. I got to take a peek at it.
Good deal. All right. Well, I would ask Stephen what he's got coming up, but he's talking about another trip, and if he's going to Georgia, this may be the last time we ever see him again. But
just Dan might enjoy
it. That's right. Well, it's not a Discord after chat. It's a Patreon after chat there, Dan. But yeah, if you would like to check that out and you're not a Patreon, you can send myself or Hayden a message, and we'll let you try out the after chat, and you can start seeing what Patreons, some of the benefits they get, because there's quite a few of them. I really pride myself on my Patreon stuff. So other than that, myself, tomorrow I'll be doing about 4 hours of video editing in the morning. And then I'll have a video out tomorrow afternoon, as always, every Thursday. And then I'll be out activating, and I'll be activating all weekend long and every day for the rest of this year, or until somebody puts me in a hole in the ground. So, other than that, thanks everybody for the buy me a coffee, and thanks for the super chats, and thanks for stopping by tonight. And 73, everybody.
73, hit the like button.